It's really a privilege for me to be given this opportunity to moderate this session, a very important session. In fact, what better tribute can be there for Dr. Pritam Singh, whom I had known for many years and had the opportunity of interacting with him many times. And in fact, every time we used to discuss, he used to say that we need to take the organizations and leaders to the next orbit. This was his pet sentence he used to tell me. And always when I discussed with him, came back a wiser and better enlightened person, thanks to Dr. Pritam Singh. In fact, I remember before his demise also, a few months prior to that, we were discussing that whether we can have some joint program on this particular subject itself. But unfortunately, God was cruel who snatched him from us. I feel that this kind of conference will take the legacy of Dr. Pritam Singh forward. And I am really would like to compliment Dr. Pritam Singh Memorial Prism for organizing this conference. And I'm sure these kind of conferences would be organized in future also. And the topic of the today's session, for which I have been given the responsibility, future of business, public sector and cooperative sector realities, is a very important subject because there is a total shift in the business scenario and the business reality. And all of us as organization as well as the leaders have to be future ready. And if we talk about public sectors and cooperatives, they have played a vital role in the development, socio-economic development of this country. Public sectors, which have gone up from 5 numbers at the time of independence to 366 today, out of which 256 are operating. They have done a wonderful work in infrastructure development, in removing the regional disparity, as well as played a critical role in the price stabilization in this country. Just to share with you some of the figures, they have been contributing close to 12% of the GDP in the recent past. As per the DP survey 1920, close to 25 lakh crore was the gross turnover. And payment to exchequer was 3.76 lakh crore, unimaginable figure in by way of duties, by way of taxes, as well as the dividend, etc. 3.76 lakh crore, which is in fact equivalent to the GDP of many small countries also. This is being done by the public sectors alone. Against the popular belief that public sectors, many of the public sector are making losses, I would like to share one figure with you. Out of 256 operating PSCs, 171 are the profit making, contributing close to 1.38 lakh crore, and overall profit is 1 lakh crore. It means 2/3 of the public sectors are making profit. And in fact, if you make a comparison with the USA listed organization, less than 50% of the profit making there. I didn't have the figures of the Indian companies, but I'm sure they would be of the same order. So this is the kind of not only working in the social development of the country, but commercially also they have performed very well. Having worked for 4 decades with the public sector enterprise, when I got the opportunity to serve the scope, the Standing Conference of Public Enterprises, during the COVID period, we compiled the kind of data that what work is being done by the public sector, and it is really eye-opener. We prepared a compendium, the kind of which is available on our website also. they had done on the medical innovation, on the medical infrastructure, as well as providing food and shelter to the needy, to the migrant laborers, unimaginable, unthinkable. And during the second wave, when the oxygen problem came, then these organizations came forward. And the figures are available on the net also, the kind of work they had done in this particular direction. And they continue to do that. Another area which I like to highlight is, basically we have been working with them on the skilling as well as innovation. And the climate change is another area. They are the one who have been conceptualizing, implementing capacity building work which is being done in this particular field, and developing many of the equipment also in this particular area. I'm sure that we would hear much more from the eminent panelists who are with me today. But while talking about the cooperatives, cooperatives have contributed immensely for the development, especially of the rural sector and the agriculture sector, which is the backbone of the economy of this country. And this is the movement. And there are live examples before us, like Ifco, Amul. And if you see, Mr. Singh would reconfirm those figures. I understand more than 98% the rural is covered through the cooperatives one way or another. And they are the one who are providing the finances at much affordable rates to the needies in this particular area. So this is a lot of work. Government has also seen that there, if the country has to develop, then definitely cooperatives have to play a major role. That's the reason in July 2021, they have specifically made a ministry for that. And there is a draft policy also which is being prepared in that particular direction. The point which I am trying to make is, giving this background, that despite the change in the business dynamics as well as the new business scenario, public sectors as well as the cooperatives will continue to play a major role in the economic as well as social development of this country. We will hear much more from the panelists. So with these words, I would like to invite and please join me in welcoming the eminent panelist, Dr. Alka Mittal, who is Director HR ONGC. And in fact, just to share with you, she is the first woman to hold the charge of the director on the ONGC board. In fact, she was on our board also, on the scope board, and she played we have got a women in public sector in a different forum on our in our scope, and she played a major role in that particular area. Welcome to Dr. Mittal. Then we have Mr. Pushp Joshi. He is the Director HR HPCL, who is a stalwart in HR profession and played a pivotal role in leading the key transformational and the strategic initiative in HPCL. Welcome to you, Joshi ji. I have with me Mr. RP Singh, whom I am meeting in fact for the first time, but I have heard a lot about him. He is the eminent HR professional and who has been instrumental in evolving the HR policies and innovative HR practices in Ifco and taking this movement forward. We are joined here. Usha Singh has joined from MOIL. She is the Director HR and she has joined virtually. You can see her there also. She is a dynamic HR leader in the country, whom I had the privilege of interacting many times. Whenever she comes to Delhi, always we discuss a lot. And in fact, just to share with you, she was adjudged one of the top 100 women executives in the mining sector in the world. And in fact, she also got, in 2017, Scope Award for the outstanding women. Welcome to you, Usha ji also. I think Now we will have we had discussed with the panelists, and the total, we will be going the question answer form, and I will be requesting the panelists to, put forward their, what you call, views on specific questions, if you agree with this. So we will have the first question I'll put forward is each of the panelists, they represent the strategic sectors of the country. And I request the panelists to please throw some light on how you perceive the growth and changing relevance of PSCs or cooperatives in general and with respect to your own sector. And while responding to this particular point, please also highlight what differentiating role PSCs or cooperatives are playing in socio-economic development of the country. So we will start with our senior most panelist, Dr. Mittal. Please, ma'am.
Very good morning to all on the dais. Mr. R.P. Singh, I feel he's the senior most director HR. He was director HR when I was at E6 level in ONGC. I remember that very well. And we have worked together for NIP. Mr. Pushp Joshi, director HR HPCL, and our dear Sobti sir, who has been guiding us right as in leadership roles in the PSUs as well as at Scope. And I would like to acknowledge the presence of our panelist from MOIL. Ma'am, your presence here is so heartening, and just to see you there so bright and active is really putting life into the session. So I would just like to share that as a public sector enterprise, ONGC came into being in 1956. And that was a time when we were a commission. We were Oil and Natural Gas Commission. And we were established as part of the government agenda of getting India on the energy map of the world. And for that, we went into exploration right into different corners of the country, just to ensure us find our whereabouts as to where we will be able to locate some oil and gas reserves. And this was the way our journey started. We were a group of 64 personnel, and that was the time when we started off at Dehradun in Tel Bhavan, and which we call Tel Bhavan now. And from there, our journey started. The government equity in the company over time in the initial years was 343 crores. And I'm just talking in numbers because I feel I'll be talking about the more important intangibles after this. So while we were established with an investment from the government of 343 crores, till now, we have paid back more than 10 lakh crores. We have contributed by way of disinvestment, by issue of shares, and in dividend, of course, each year. And while ONGC has grown over ages, over the last few decades, I would say, we became a company in 94, and then we were identified as one of the Navratnas along with the 9 others, which became 18. And now I think we have a number of Navratnas, but ONGC became a Maharatna in 2010. And that was the time when the government realized that we are becoming a global giant in the energy sector. And in light of that, we were given lots of freedom to operate. The autonomy came in very useful for us. We have grown not only as a exploration and production company, we are a group which has verticals in different domains, whether it is petrochem or it is refining. We are present almost value-added products. We are contributing in every area. But while our focus remains on exploration and production of oil, we are also focused on going into renewables. And there we are making good headway. We have already got 194 megawatt of installed renewable energy capacity. But our domain still remains the energy, the E&P sector. So while we'll be talking a little more about it later on, I would like to focus that ONGC, as the spirit with which the public sector came up, was that we have to also ensure that the well-being of our populace, the well-being of our people is to be kept in mind. I'm not talking about ONGC personnel that way, but I'm talking about those who were around our areas of operation. ONGC being present in remotest of corners, we have been contributing towards their well-being by way of socio-economic development policy, which came up, which we were going by way back in 90s, even before 90s, I would say. But over time, with the CSR framework coming up in the country, we have contributed quite a lot about it, towards that. And we have been a part of the team which came up with a very policy in itself. When the DPE came up with the policy for public sector, DPE came up with the policy first, and then we came up, the country came up with the act. As part of the Companies Act, we came up with the CSR rules and the CSR Act. So in light of that, ONGC has contributed towards different domains. Sobti sir has already mentioned, during the COVID, we were there. ONGC was given the agenda of procuring 1 lakh concentrators. And other companies, our our sector companies were contributing towards PSA plant, and there were installation of PSA plant. Over 100 PSA plants got placed in different remote government hospitals of our country. And they are all functional now. They have been commissioned. And we also contributed towards the cold supply chain to ensure that the vaccinations could be transported. So this is just a part of how the public sector has been there with the nation whenever there was in the hour of need, while doing our work, conducting our business in the most professional manner. I'll just pass the mic to the next person.
Thank you, Dr. Mittal. In fact, she rightly mentioned that public sectors have been working in the social area. Just to share one figure with you, during 1920, 5,000 crores were spent or invested by public sector enterprises in the CSR. 5,000 crore alone. So now I'll request Mr. Singh, in fact, to just, his views on this particular question which you have raised.
Thank you, Dr. Sobti. At the outset, I pay my obeisance to the greatest leader, that is Guru Nanak Dev Ji, whose birthday also happens to be today, and to the great leader, Dr. Pritam Singh Ji, whom we all love and respect and are happy to be learning from him. And we will continue to learn in future also, maybe in the name of this kind of memorial lecture, or maybe even otherwise, based on the teachings that he has written down and kept for us to be followed. You know, when Dwarka Garu told me to come to this conference, I said, I'm not a public sector. So why do you call me to that session where public sector alone is to be there? We said, okay, we'll make it public and cooperative sector. So I was also pleasantly surprised. Mr. Sobti, I think we are not meeting for the first time, but unfortunately, when we meet on the internet or on the online conferences, we usually do not remember each other, but I do, because you are an important person. You represent scope. And when the labor minister called for a conference for discussing the views on the labor laws, that 4 new labor codes, then you were also there representing the scope, and I was there representing PhD Chamber of Commerce. So we have met, but not face to face. Now coming to the cooperatives, because there is still a lot of confusion. What exactly is cooperative and how is it different from the public sector? So, you know, we also, public sector means generally what we conceive is that wherever government has a majority stake is a public sector. And from that point of view, IFFCO also could be considered a public sector till 2004, because majority stake was held by Government of India. And we also were members of scope and still continue to be, even though we don't pay the contribution. The difference between, in 2004, we returned entire equity of Government of India. And since then, we consider to be identified as a cooperative alone. Now, the difference that I could perceive between the public sector and private sector and cooperative sector is that public sector is focused or to goals which are government centric. Wherever the government sets certain goals, public sector is supposed to be achieving those goals. Private sector is usually the goals set by entrepreneurs. But cooperative sector is a pure people-centric organization where the goals are set by the people who are members of the cooperative, and the principle is mutual aid and cooperation for mutual benefit. So this is the principle on which cooperative sector is based. Now coming to the specific role of IFFCO, I think we all know that fertilizer is something which is essential for food security, and we are the largest manufacturer of fertilizer in India. And in the cooperative sector, of course, we are the largest manufacturer in the world. And amongst the cooperative sectors in the world, out of the 300 top cooperatives, we are number one, announced by the International Cooperative Alliance based on certain criteria. Now coming to the role of IFFCO, apart from manufacturing fertilizers, we focus largely on farmers. Let me tell you that we are not covered by the corporate social responsibility law because we are not a company, and that law is applicable only to companies. But by way of our own philosophy, because our mission and vision is that we have to transform rural lives, we have to improve the lives of farmers. And this is an area where generally people would not focus. And social responsibility is taken care of by several public sectors and even now by private sectors, even earlier also, I shouldn't say now, but we have decided a certain area. We have decided that the focus of ours should be on preserving the health of the soil, which is going to feed us all for eternity. So we have focused on that, and we do soil testing free of cost all over the country through our own labs as well as through mobile vans. We also focus on conservation of water. I mean, these are all beyond the commercial activities that we carry. So, and the other area where for the sustainable development of rural masses that we focus is on self-help groups. So water conservation, afforestation, and development of self-help groups. And there are thousands and thousands of self-help groups which have been got incorporated by us, trained by us, and they are now self-sufficient and making good economic advantage. Despite being a largest manufacturer of chemical fertilizers, IFFCO has always been conscious of the fact that chemical fertilizers are not good for the environment, are not good for the soil health, and are not good for the overall ecology of the universe. So despite being manufacturers, we have always been telling people that use less and less of chemical fertilizers. Of course, we can't do without it because the challenges that we are facing, the requirement of food that this country has, makes it essential to use chemical fertilizers. But we have been focusing on research and innovation because, as we all know, businesses grow around the satisfaction of human needs. So whatever human needs are there, some or the other leader will take that into account and develop a business model around that. So we see that despite whatever use of technology or artificial intelligence or design thinking and machine learning and whatever, these are all a means to an end. They are not the end in itself. Usually the end is to satisfy human needs. And the challenges that we are facing, are likely to face, are the environment, the global warming, the deteriorating health of soil, the pollution that we are facing even today in Delhi. We find it very difficult to breathe, and a scarcity of resources like water, air, and mineral resources also. So we were wondering whether there could be a solution to this, and whether some breakthrough solution which would be disruptive. So I just wanted to mention this because the theme of the conference was the future of business. So the future of business that we are likely to change, I'm happy to announce here, is that we have been able to make a breakthrough innovation in the field of manufacture of urea. Urea is the fertilizer which harms the most. It is used for increasing production, and because of the government policy, it's highly subsidized. So the farmers, even though we keep on telling them that don't use too much of urea, the soil needs 3 other ingredients, you use balanced fertilization, but they would use urea because this is the cheapest. And this damages the soil most. So we were quietly doing some innovation. And finally, we have come out with a new product, which is going to be very, very disruptive. And this is called as Nano Urea liquid. So this is an innovation which would disrupt the entire fertilizer industry in times to come. And one bottle of this 500 milliliter bottle of liquid nano urea will replace 1 bag of 45 kg of urea. So this is going to be a great disruption. And I'm happy to announce that so far we have been quietly making it. And day before yesterday, we achieved a target of producing 1 crore bottles. So, and this is going to save the government of a lot of subsidy. The cost of urea that today a farmer gets is 268 rupees in the hands of farmer. But the actual cost of import of urea per bag is 3,000 rupees. 3,000 rupees, and farmer gets at 268. The entire balance money is subsidized by Government of India. This nano urea without subsidy, we are already selling it at 240 rupees. So in place of 3,000 rupees, it is costing 240 rupees. And you can just imagine when you have to transport we alone sell about 1.25 crore metric tons of fertilizer. So movement of that much of fertilizer will get reduced by we plan to produce about 32 crore bottles of nano urea, and that will substitute the entire 137 lakh tons of urea. So this is going to have a great impact on environment. And this is something which is not being sprayed into the soil. So when urea is applied, it only gets absorbed to the extent of 30%. Rest all goes waste. And eventually with the rainwater and all, it will either percolate down below and spoil the groundwater, or it will go to the sea and increase global warming. This is applied directly on the, through sprayers, directly on the leaves, and it gets absorbed immediately. So 1 prill of urea is broken into more than 10,000 nano pieces of urea. So that's how it becomes. So this is a great innovation that we have done. I felt happy to announce this here.
Thank you. Mr.
Rest
Singh.
all that we are doing is already we are doing, and most of it is known to others. And I think as we go along, we'll.
Thank you very much.
Talk
In
about
fact, this is the
Thank you.
greatest technology disruption, which in fact the public sectors and now the cooperatives are also known for. A lot of things have been developed through the innovations and the R&D efforts which are being put in by these organizations. Now I will move on to Mr. Joshi to give his views on the subject, but I'll request both the panelists to restrict to 5 minutes because we have got I have got the message that we have to wind up by 10:45. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's 5 minutes for both of us, or? Thank you very much, sir. I begin by paying my tribute to Dr. Singh, and I thank the foundation, Pritam Singh Foundation members and office bearers for giving me this great opportunity to be sitting on dais talking on this subject and under the picture of great Dr. Pritam Singh. So thank you very much. I am truly humbled. That said, I represent energy sector, and it's stating the obvious that how important the energy sector is in the economy. Now, it may be a matter of debate whether companies in energy sector should be in public sector space or private sector space. It's my belief that there can be effective companies both in public sector and private sectors, and similarly, there can be ineffective companies, which Mr. Sobti was alluding to, in private sector space also. So I think that is not the issue, but the issue is that as public sectors, how do we contribute to the economy, to the nation in this very strategic area? And the figures, the data, the experiences have proved this beyond any doubt. I think everybody talks about the past disruption because of COVID. And it may interest you to know that in the last 1.5 years, none of the oil companies had stopped their operation even for an hour. Because we have seen that right from day zero, whether it's need for petrol, whether it's need for diesel, whether it's needs for LPG gas, all that was delivered everywhere without any hindrance. Now that stresses and that actually underlines the importance and the strategic importance which public sector oil companies in the energy sector have played. For example, my company, Hindustan Petroleum, we have got about 19,000 petrol pumps across the country. And there was not even a single instance that anywhere in the country, any petrol pump went dry. They may have been closed because of certain restrictions, but none of them were dry. Now, to ensure that the products flow to all these 19,000 petrol pumps requires some kind of system, some kind of procedures, some kind of dedication. Above all this, the dedication of our employees. We've got 8 crores LPG customers. And all these customers, whatever was required by them was delivered. So that just underlines the strategic importance and the role played by the companies in oil sector. Apart from that, definitely efforts which are being made in terms of skilling. All the oil companies have got skill development institute across the country. Indian Oil has got a very big skill development center in Bhubaneswar. We have got a skill development center in Visakhapatnam. And I'm very proud to say that in past 4 years, we have skilled more than 12,000 youth, and of them, about 80 to 85% have got jobs. Now, this is no mean achievement by a company which is in oil sector. Getting similar figures are there for other oil companies. So to your point, sir, that definitely there is a strategic importance. The work which is being done by public sector companies, especially public sector oil companies whom I represent, have done tremendous work. Now, the second facet of this is that while as a country, our per capita energy consumption is far below the world average. And we can safely say that this is only going to increase. But on one hand, we enhance our energy consumption, per capita energy consumption. On second hand, the other side of that is the impact which it has on environment. So, I mean, we have just got off of COP26. We have all seen what kind of deliberations have taken place, what kind of plans are being drawn up in terms of net zero, and various milestones have been announced. So public sector, especially public sector oil companies, have already got all this in their fold. So on one hand, while we will be enhancing the energy availability to the country, at the same time, we will reduce the carbon footprint. And one thing which is silently has already been implemented, and implemented so efficiently and effectively, that today about 9% blending is done in petrol of ethanol. Now you can imagine that if we are going to do this, that means 9% already the petrol or refining which is there, petrol which comes from as a fossil fuel, has been saved. The country has a target to do 20% blending by 25. And I'm extremely confident that we will be able to achieve that. That itself, one can imagine that if 20% of the petrol consumption in the country is not out of fossil fuel, which is out of renewable sources like 1G ethanol, 2G ethanol, which is from sugar cane or agri residue and waste and things like that. So this would definitely help environment in such a long way. In past 5 years, 5 to 6 years, this Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, today we can see the changes which has taken place. Today, almost 98% of the households in the country have got access to LPG. This would mean that, and this will definitely, right now the consumption is low, but going forward, this would definitely be enhanced. And this would mean that our reliance on fossil fuel, our reliance on wood, our reliance on coal would go down. So, and these are all the contribution of the oil companies. So definitely it plays a very, very strategic role in the development of country, especially in the energy sector, which I represent, which takes care of both making energy available to the citizens of the country, at the same time, taking care of the environment. Now, I would definitely talk about the R&D efforts, the other CSR efforts in the next discussion, which will take place after this. So I would like to just close here by saying that, I mean, it's stating the obvious that this is such a strategic sector. It has got tremendous importance, and we have redeemed ourselves, we have validated ourselves by giving this and proving this beyond any doubt that in public sector, we have done these things very, very effectively, very efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi. It's a well-known fact that HPCL is contributing a lot in the petroleum sector, which I has already elaborated. Now we move on to Mrs. Usha Singh, to give her views. Over to Usha.
Respected Sobti Sir, DG Scope, all the doyens of HR from different public sectors, Dr. Asha Bhandarkar, all the academia here, my dear students and all participants who are joined in this conference. It's my personal loss that I have not been able to come there physically, but joining virtually also is giving me so much of pleasure, and seeing Dr. Pritam Singh smiling out there. I had the opportunity of working closely with Dr. Pritam Singh. We have organized, he was the chief coordinator for directors workshops in Steel Authority of India Limited, where I got the opportunity of working closely with him. And Sobti Saab, you said that moving to the next orbit was one of the close phrases to Dr. Pritam Singh. And that was the caption, the theme of one of the directors workshop that we organized under the leadership of Dr. Pritam Singh. So coming to today's question, what Sobti Saab has put up to us. Firstly, I would like to state that I would represent the steel sector, coming from working more than 25 years for Steel Authority of India Limited. Then I have worked for NMDC, which is the largest iron ore producing company in public sector in the country. And now I'm a part of MOIL, which is largest manganese ore producer in the country with a market share of around 50% of domestic production. And all this, and then more than 90% of this manganese goes into the steel industry. So it has been a complete steel industry profile that I have had in my career till now. So talking about the steel sector, let me just give you a short, in a few sentences, an overview of the entire steel sector. So steel, globally, 50% of the steel production or consumption is coming from China. India is the second largest. And when we say the second largest, it doesn't mean that we are close to China. There is a huge gap. So if China is at 1 billion tons of production, India is at 100 million ton, and others who follow like Japan, USA and all are just 10 millions away from the second stage, second position what India has. But steel was a sector which opened in 1991 itself. It has been put to stiffest challenge what can be there globally. So the public sectors who are operating in the steel sector, whether it's Steel Authority or RINL, they have to face the stiffest competition. They have to compete against the global best. So all the global best, whether it is ArcelorMittal or Tata Steel or JSW, all these are the ones with whom, say, the public sectors have to compete. And this competition is only bringing the best. And the competition never brings, it never pushes you back. It always brings the best in you, and that we have seen through experience. As coming to the significance, the role what public sectors have been playing. So I would just give a few examples from each of the organizations, I would say. So as far as market share is concerned, let me admit that, before liberalization or even years before that, there was a case when, the SAIL had a market share of around 70 to 80% of the steel production. But after 1991 and thereafter, the things have changed. And as of now, the position is that the public sector contributes less than 20% of the Indian production. But going ahead, the steel is a sunrise sector in the country. We have entered into a steel intensive phase in the country, and that would mean the others, the companies growing along with SAIL and RINL also growing, even though, as you all would know, RINL, Vizag Steel Plant, which is called commonly, has already been put for privatization. But the role what they have played is, they see the global consumption of steel is average is around 225 kgs per capita consumption, and India is still at 74. It is around 1/3 of the global steel consumption. And so, and in rural consumption, steel consumption is at a much lower level. It is estimated to be around 19 kgs. So, there's a big journey, especially to be played in the rural sector, and who better than the public sectors who have gone into each nook and corner of the country. They have set up distribution centers in every district of the country and have been taking several campaigns that how sell steel, Gav ki or. So, all these to reaching steel, advocating how steel can be beneficial for different applications in every nook and corner. No better authority, no better organization can do it than the public sectors. This is other than the value addition which is taking place, the CSR, which is going to the most undeveloped regions of the nation. And coming to, when we talk of undeveloped nations, I must name NMDC. NMDC is the largest iron ore producer in the country. And it produces around, this year it's going to touch 40 millions of iron ore production. And it's 2/3 of production is coming from Belladilla, which is operating in the Bastar region in Chhattisgarh. So Bastar region in Chhattisgarh, you all would have only heard it, mostly people, all the students at least, you all would have heard it only when the Naxalite activities take place in the Bastar region. So this is the area where 2/3 production of the iron ore is coming off NMDC. And the area is so remote that even in these times of the best available communication facilities, transportation facilities, we take around a full 1 day to reach the Kirandul and the Bacheli mines, which are operating here. And let me also tell you that, these have the best grades of iron ore in the world, 68, 69% Fe percentage. And, the 2-3 decades back, the government had also allotted 1 block each to the best 2 private sector players in the country. And in spite of all efforts, they took a decade, but they had to surrender the block because they could not develop it because of the stiff resistance which was there from the local population. So you can well imagine how NMDC has been able to entrench itself in operating in this area. And it is like, when I remember I was promoted as ED personnel of the company, and the next day I have a meeting to meet along with Chief Secretary of Chhattisgarh. Why? Because it is NMDC CSR is like government effort. When we go there, and all the additional secretaries, all the district magistrates of those regions are connected through VC, and we basically decide what has to be the development in the whole Bastar region, which has to be funded totally by NMDC. So that kind of initiative has been taken by NMDC. Similarly, about my present organization, Manganese Ore India Limited, as I told you, it produces around 50% of the manganese. It has around 11 mines in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, and you would have heard of Balaghat, which is the deepest manganese ore mines in Asia. And you know, I would 70% of the production of manganese of MOIL is coming through underground mines, and you have to
Thank
be
you,
there
Usha.
to
I think we need to wind up with this question now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So only thing I would say that the public sectors, what I have seen is that it is not only a price leveler, but it is certainly something which has led to overall development in the regions it has operated. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think very nicely explained by you in all the sectors, the kind of contribution which has been made by the public sector. The next point which I like to raise is and I'll start with Mr. Joshi. Two or three quick points on that in the changing business environment. What changes in your opinion we as PSCs need to bring about in our approach?
Thank you, sir. That's a great point, and point which definitely needs a very serious thought is that if in the changing environment, in the changing circumstances, if the public sectors have to find relevance and grow, we can't be sitting on our past laurels and saying that, you know, we have done this, we have achieved this, so we can. Definitely not. We will have to do some hard soul searching. What quickly comes to my mind is that in our approaches where we have to bring innovation, we have to bring agility. And for that, we have to create an environment. We have to have a mindset change from process centricity or the primacy to the processes which we give to the primacy which needs to be given to outcome. The focus has to shift. While we cannot compromise on the processes, I understand that, but the primacy has to shift on that. And then only we can create an environment where innovation is supported, risk taking is encouraged. Just a case in point is that while many of us have various schemes for reward and recognition, in HPCL last year we've just introduced an award for failure. This is an award which is given, I mean, the employees nominate, the officers nominate themselves for this award. And this is an award given for people who have tried but not succeeded. Now, what is very encouraging for us is we've called this award HP Aparajit. And what is very, very encouraging for us is that from a small team, we have tried this in HR, and I have received 72 individual nominations. That means people are willing to come forward and say, they're not scared of saying that we have failed. So this is just a case in point. So we have to create that kind of environment where we are, because if we don't innovate, if we don't try and take these kind of approaches, we will all be talking about our past glory. We'll be all talking about a sense of entitlement, but we will not find ourselves current. And innovation and agility are the bywords for that. So we have to do that. Now, just to close this, thank you. Just to close this, I will take just 2 minutes, and I'm reminded of a story which Dr. Preetham Singh had told me in this regard. So I don't know whether I'll be able to narrate as good as he used to do, but still I will make an attempt. So kindly bear with me for 2-3 minutes. This is a story of, he talked about Greek literature. He was very fond of, traditional, whether Mahabharata or Gita or Greek literature. So he talked about a story from Greek literature of a king of Lydia. This was a king of Lydia. His name was Cyrus. So this king was a very successful king. He was, a very popular king in a country called Lydia. And in fact, he was very rich also. And because of the obvious reasons, because he was the person who invented coins, gold coins. So he has to be rich, you know. So he was there. Now, he was not satisfied with whatever he had got. So what he thought was that there was a superpower in 7th century BC, another superpower in the kingdom of Persia. And it was ruled by a king called Cyrus. So he thought, now why not I invade that and get that kingdom also. Another very unique feature of Lydia, you know, in the Greek literature, that time god Apollo, who was supposed to be the god of sunlight. Also, another unique thing about god Apollo was that he was the god of prophecies, predicting. So they were oracles, and the most famous being Oracle of Delphi. So that was, so what happened is that this king sent his messengers to Oracle of Delphi, and the procedure was that you go give your gifts, ask your question, and you will get a reply, supposedly from gods. So he sent his emissaries with a lot of gifts and all that. They went to Oracle of Delphi and asked that if our king, you know, launches a war upon Persia, what will happen? And back came the reply from the oracle that he would destroy a mighty empire. Now that was sufficient. So he heard that, and then, you know, they all celebrated that God are with us, and with all the preparation, they launched a war on Persia. In that war, they lost miserably. The whole thing was over. That was the downfall of Lydia. Now this guy was obviously disappointed that I'm such an effective public sector. I've done such great things, and you know, I'm gone now. So he had a grudge. So he, after a few years, because he was reduced to a minor, after a few years, he again sent his emissaries to Oracle to clarify what had happened. So again, but this time they went with lesser gifts because he was not that rich. Still they went. The reply came that you didn't hear us completely. You didn't ask questions. You simply heard that, you know, a great emperor, great empire will be destroyed. You never asked whether it will be your empire or Persian empire. Okay. The lesson which he was trying to give me was this, that you can't be sitting on your past laurels. You have to ask questions. You have to clarify. You have to actually think and go beyond. I thought that may represent the thing here. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Usha, your 2 quick points. What needs to be done?
What needs to be done? Hunger for growth, hunger for value addition, hunger for attracting talent. All that has hunger for adopting latest technology. All that has to be there. Only that can take us ahead. And these are very easy to say, but in our day-to-day lives, we know how we are running from one board meeting to another, and one board subcommittee to another, and one function to another. Taking out time for what is important and not only urgent, what is to achieve the roadmap for the midterm and the long-term goals, how to envision, and not only envision, but how to communicate that is very much crucial. I would place communication at the top of the agenda. You have to understand what are the business imperatives, and you have to communicate, communicate, and communicate. And as an example, I would say that I have seen the transformation of a large organization, and that I would name Rourkela Steel Plant for that. The cultural transformation taking place through communication, where, you know, it was so evident when the entire workforce would actually only talk about what is the fault with the corporate office or this organization and that intervention. But when you focus on yourself, and when the masses themselves became the communication leaders and said, focused on what they have to do, what each department has to do, what each person has to do. Things have changed. So I think envision and communicate, work on it.
Thank you, Usha. Now we request Mr. Singh for 2-3 quick points.
On public sector,
Both.
okay.
You talk about the cooperative sector, basically. On the cooperative sector.
In fact, Mr. Singh, I'll just intervene for a minute because I'm scared when he talks. Because when he mentioned about this urea, nano urea, I was just thinking that what impact it will have on my business. I will lose my business.
Yes.
Because if so many bags have to be transported, so much of diesel sale will go down. So right away, you're creating a problem for us.
In fact, I stopped short of saying that Dr. Alka and Mr. Joshi will be really giving you a good challenge. But that's good for the society. And anyway, hydrocarbons are needed in several other areas. Today we are rationing. Government is pooling and doing all sorts of rationing. Maybe imports will get drastically reduced. As far as my thinking goes, we have to focus on the newer challenges that are facing us, like the pandemics and the global warming and the environment and several other challenges, and do a very concentrated research and development in those areas. And that would really be able to bring about some very fundamental changes. Now, this innovation by Ifco was driven by the fact that we were not getting enough gas, and whatever we were getting was at very high cost. Maybe government used to control that cost. That was the reason, plus the damage that it was causing to the soil. So this was the reason that we were driven by. There are other two areas. I mean, fertilizer has three essential components. One is nitrogen, the other is potash, and the third one is phosphate. So this country doesn't have potash and doesn't have phosphate. 100% we depend upon imports. So rock phosphate import from Morocco and Jordan and certain other countries. And potash we import from Canada and Russia and Belarus and some Middle East countries. So these are again very essential products. So now we are focusing on producing nano fertilizers for potash and for phosphate, because these are the challenges that we have taken in a very focused manner. And in the field of phosphate, we do have certain breakthroughs. It does take a lot of groundwork here in India to convince the authorities that innovations can be done in India as well. So when we first went to the government with the innovation of nano urea, nobody was prepared to believe. They said that, no, how could it be possible? I mean, USA has not done it. China has not done it. How? Government of India has not done it. CSIR has not done it. ICAR has not done it. How could you do it? I mean, we were focused and we were doing it. We got the results. Then lots of investigations, trials and all that. We conducted trials at 11,000 places all over the country under the supervision of agriculture universities and the ICAR. And finally, the government found that there is nothing wrong with it.
Excellent. That's a very big achievement.
So now we are focusing on the other two areas. My thinking is that each leader, each organization worth the salt should focus on the future challenges of the country and do extensive research and development in that, and use all its might all its technology, all its artificial intelligence, all its leadership skills in those areas. And perhaps that is the mantra, not only for public sector, that is for all of us, for cooperatives, for private, everywhere, and of course, a lot has already been done. And I think right people know the right thing and they are working in right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Mittal.
So I know we are at the end of the session and I'll not be touching too much on the details, but taking cue from Usha ji, I'll just say that there are 3 C's. We need to actually connect with our people, those who are going to be the front runners when it comes to taking the organization or our initiatives forward. We need to also communicate to not only our own teams with the outside world. They should know what good we are doing, because I really felt very good when Usha ji was talking first about the entire steel sector, about the iron ore refining, and then you came to your own field. By the time you came to your field, your time was up, but you still had so much energy to talk about it. It was really wonderful to listen to you. So while we are talking about communicating, we are talking about connecting, I would give lots of emphasis on collaborating. Now is the time when we need to collaborate, not only with the public, within the public sector, maybe with the outside world as well. It doesn't hold you back from growing as a company, as an organization. So when India is headed towards becoming a 5 trillion economy by 2024, 25, I think we have to do all possible efforts to stand by our country and our nation. So that is one thing, 3 C's. And I would talk about 3 I's now. We need to innovate, as has been shared by all the panelists. We need to develop the best of environment to have innovation activities going on, have good institutes. ONGC takes pride in having 10 institutes of, I would say they are centers of excellence in different domains of E&P sector. But while we were working on growing as an exploration and production company with these 10 institutes, whether it is reservoir studies, or it is petroleum exploration or ocean technology, we were also simultaneously looking at creating alternate renewable energies pool in the country. Within the country, we have this ONGC Energy Center. It is not-for-profit center, which was established in 2004. And we are doing lots of interesting work under that. So while we are talking about innovation, we need to incubate as well. The ideas have to be really incubated, then only things happen. How does it happen? By inspiring people. Those who are working in R&D institutes need to be given that agenda for taking up a large, working towards a larger cause, I would say. Because when that happens, the organization gets propelled towards an area where strategically we'll start moving towards the future, and there's no holding back. I'll just end here, but I'll wish all the participants who are here all the best, and I would pay my regards to the team which has got us all together under the under the banner of Dr. Pritam Singh's foundation. Dr. Pritam Singh, a person who has been respected and loved by all of us, speaking all the way from Mumbai just to attend and be with us this session. So I really enjoyed listening to you, Pushp, and to Mr. Singh and Usha ji, of course. Thanks, sir, for taking us through the session. Very blessed to be here today.
Thank you very much. As we come close to this very interesting session, in fact, I would like to thank all the panelists, eminent panelists, who shared their views, in fact, and made us enlightened that how the public sector and the cooperatives, they have been contributing to the socio-economic development of this country. And very pertinent points also at the end came out, that what needs to be done in the changed business environment. Few points we'd like to mention here, and I think all of us need to work together in that particular direction. One is the focus on the innovation. We heard a lot from Mr. Singh that what kind of work they have done, and we are very confident that we can do it. And second point is the synergy. That's very important, that we need to collaborate or synergize Synergy, why synergy should be public-private partnership. Sitting here, it was coming to my mind after listening to Mr. Singh, we can have the synergy between the public sector and the cooperatives also. That needs to be worked out. We need to learn from each other. So basically, innovation is one thing, synergy is another thing. Then one very important point which was made by Mr. Joshi, that not to sit on the past laurel. That's very important thing. I'm sure that most of you would have read the book that How the Mighty Fall. And I think many of the organizations have fallen in the public sector also based on that only. One very important point which came that we need to share. Sharing is very important. That's the reason in the beginning in fact, many of the people in the society also, they don't know what kind of work, what kind of performance of the public sector has been there and the cooperatives have been there. So we need to share and we need to tell the, what you call, masses in general also. In this direction, in scope along with the public sectors are working for the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, 3 areas we are going to work. Videos are being prepared by all the public sectors, which would be taken on the social media. And in the coming days, then there are exhibitions are going to be there. And there are number of roundtable conferences also being organized in that particular direction, that what contribution has been made by the public sector in making this country Atmanirbhar and what more is being done. With this, I will thank everybody, all the participants here also, and the panelists and the organizers. Great. Thanks for giving this opportunity. Thank you very much.